Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now last year I went to Paris to the design studios of Renault for a pretty exclusive first look at this, their new R5, the latest embodiment of such an iconic car for them. And I will be honest with you, I fell in love with it at first glance. I got to meet the design team, I saw the clay models, they had historic Renault 5s of old, the inspiration behind this reimagining of the classic Renault 5. But up until today, I haven't actually managed to get my hands on one to drive. I've driven its sportier sibling, the Alpine A290, and I absolutely love that. But I am so excited to finally drive the Renault 5. Literally 4 days ago, I got an email from Renault saying, we haven't got any UK cars yet, but we do have a left-hand drive French car, hence the plates. We've only got it in the country for a very short period of time. It goes back at the weekend. If we bring it down to you, would you like it for a couple of days to film with it? And I went, absolutely. So let's hope the weather holds out and let's get our heads around the new R5 and finally get to drive it. Yes, when I saw this car for the first time in the studio, I just thought it had the most presence. But it's definitely a car you need to see out in the wild, and I haven't seen one in the UK for obvious reasons. The only ones I've actually seen were in the south of France on another Renault press trip. And that was in Monaco, and it just looked so at home in the bright sunshine, in the warm. The one I saw in the south of France was in the yellow trim, which is my favourite. I do like this green. It's a bit out there. But in the UK, even on this kind of dark and dank day, somehow this car just cheers me up. I just look at it and smile. And I haven't met many people who don't like the R5, if I'm honest. Even ardent petrol heads go, do you know what? If I was going to have an electric car, I'd probably have that new Renault 5, you know. That looks quite cool. And it's already winning plaudits. It's just won Car of the Year 2025. And that doesn't surprise me at all. But what's it like to drive? We're going to take it out for a drive. I need to talk to you about spec. I need to talk to you about price as well, because actually for an EV, it's very, very reasonably priced. But let's have a look inside, because it just has a really cool vibe to it. Of course, left-hand drive, steering wheel's on the wrong side. Anyway, it's not just the R5 that I'm testing out this week. I've been running this REDTIGER F77 Dashcam because, let's face it, driving standards in the UK aren't getting any better, are they? And many of us are now opting to run dashcams in our car just in case the worst happens. This system has two cameras, a front-facing camera and a rear-facing camera, both running at 4K and 30 frames a second with image stabilization. That's the kind of quality that I would run on my GoPros when I make YouTube videos. So really high quality images, you're able to zoom into those images to capture details if needed. You don't need an external memory card. It's got built-in memory, embedded multimedia card with 128 gigabytes of internal memory. The system runs on a 5-hour loop while you're driving, but it's also got a 24-hour parking monitor as well. It can see in the dark. It has enhanced night vision technology that enables it to capture really good quality images in low light conditions. So if we look at this image during the day, the same image in a dusk, low light conditions, and then finally the same image at night time, and you're able to see just how well this system operates. It's dead easy to install. There's really good instructions in the box. When you open up the box, you've got the two cameras in there, all the cabling that you need, sticky pads to help you stick it to the window, spare pads in case you put it in the wrong place. And it does give you some instructions as to where to put the cam, but the first camera I put just to the right of the rear view mirror here, out of way, and then you just need to put the cables. There's a power cable that goes from the front unit to the 12-volt socket in the car, and then there's a long USB cable that goes from the front camera all the way to the rear camera. And I've just pushed the cables up inside the trim using this tool that's in the box. It's very, very easy. And then the final thing, it's got high-speed Wi-Fi to connect the unit to your smartphone. You download an app and that allows you to get access to all the different features and functions on the dash cam, download footage and so on. Dead easy. Anyway, if you're interested in the REDTIGER F77 dashcam, I'll put a link in the video description and in the pinned comment where you can find more information on how to order one. Shall we get back to the R5? I talked about the styling on my studio shoot video, but I think the front end of the car, especially having spent some time recently with the Alpine A290, which I love to bits, but because it's got that set of fog lights on the front, I think the front end of that's just a little bit more busy. What I like about R5 is it's just clean and elegant. You've got these little daytime running lights here, which just look really cool. You've got the battery state monitor or the battery state indicator on the bonnet, and it just looks like a really cheeky front end of the car. And in this colour, a little bit like Kermit the Frog, don't you think? For me, the rear of this car is a styling triumph because it reminds me so much of the original Renault 5, yet it has this modern twist. I love the little 5 badging there, the lights are great. Boot space-wise, it's not giganormous in there. Unfortunately, we've got loads of charge cables, but there's enough space for a decent shop. This isn't a big, long road trip car. This is a run-around city car, short commute car. We'll talk more about range when we get inside. And for that kind of car, for the kind of shopping, school run type thing, that boot is absolutely ample. Anyway, let's jump inside, because I love the inside of these things. And it comes to life. I love the interior of this car. I just think, oh.
Hey, let me introduce myself a bit.
That is Renault. That's your little assistant. You remember years ago on Windows, you had those little assistants, like little paperclip that would help you out and tell you to do things. Well, Renault is the equivalent in the R5. And you can talk to him and get him to do things for you. But yeah, very cool. Anyway, interior-wise, I said when I saw this in the studio, I love the way this car has been put together. These seats, they have massive nods back to the Renault 5s of old. Headlining is lovely. I love this material on the dash. It's just different and cool and funky. I love the sweep of these two screens here. I love the way that even things like the fonts and the layout of them has been so well thought through. I actually met the designer that did those. Let me just turn the car on, actually. We'll probably get Renault say hello again. So I just think that it just looks really, really smart. They've got a wireless charge mat for my phone just down here. Here he is.
Hey, let me introduce myself a bit.
Don't worry, it's a press car, so they've set that. It doesn't do that every time you get in it, but yeah, so that's little Renault. In fact, should we go?
I'm your co-pilot, at your service. I'm here to help make your Renault ride more safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
For example, I can send you messages like these.
Does sound a little bit Stephen Hawking-esque. But yes, so the interior, mega. Now, before we get driving, we now know how much these are going to cost, and you're able to spec one. The deliveries, I think, start in March, but you can order your car now. And I thought it'd be interesting just to talk about the different options, because there are 2 different battery and motor sizes. So the pricing starts at $22,995, and that for me, I was like, wow, that's good. But that is a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack and 125 horsepower motor. And that configuration will do up to 186 miles. And I don't think that's going to be great for most people. I think if it's a very, very kind of city-based car, maybe you'll get away with that. But I think realistically, that's probably 150 miles, which I don't think is great. So I'm not sure how many people will actually spec that particular configuration. The other one, which I think will be the vast majority of cars ordered, has a 52 kilowatt hour battery and 150 horsepower. That's the car we're sat in. And that'll do up to 248 miles. And that's WLTP, so let's say a couple of 100 miles in the real world. And I think that's much, much more like it. And for the kind of journey profile this car is going to do in most use cases, I think that's ample. And that starts from 26,995. You then choose your trim level. They do Evolution, Techno, or Iconic 5. Now, I spec'd up an Iconic 5 this morning just to see how much it was. I chose the yellow paintwork because that's my favourite. I have to pay a little bit more for that. And I didn't put too many options in. I didn't choose the wicker baguette holder, but that came out at £30,595. So that's a kind of top spec one. So from sort of 24 to 30 is where you're looking at. And I think realistically, probably 27 to 30, because I don't think many people are going to spec the small motor one. But they've got some really interesting finance deals on as well. So they're doing a 0% PCP deal at the moment. It does have a £9,000 deposit, which is a bit chunky, but it turns out then £319 a month for 24 months with a £13,700 final payment. I mean, that on your monthlies, that's amazing. Or a 5.5% APR, which is still ridiculously good APR, 4,300 quid in, £1,000 dealer contribution, well, £5 off of £1,000, £995. And that comes out at £411 a month over 36 months. And they'll do it over 4 years as well if you want, again with a £13,700 final payment. So I think, bearing in mind most people buy cars nowadays like this on a PCP style deal, you know, between £300 and £400 a month, I think that is good money. And I know, don't get me wrong, I know there will be some of you watching this where you wouldn't spend more than £3,000 on a car, or that's, you know, you're struggling to put food on the table, or you've got to pay your rent, there's no money left over. I know, I appreciate that. And if you're in that boat, then, you know, hopefully things will improve. But in the crazy world we live in the world of EVs, what Renault have done with the pricing of this car, I think is very, very clever. It doesn't hit the £40,000 luxury car tax bracket, which isn't a surprise really because of the size of it, but Vauxhall Corsa nearly did. And it just, I think it's a very well-priced car, and I think they're going to sell absolutely truckloads of them. But let's go and see how it drives. Hey, not only does this car make me smile from the outside, but I've driven it, I don't know, quarter of a mile. It's quite nippy. I didn't expect it to feel that quick, to be honest. But 150 horsepower, by the way, is still more horsepower than the Renault 5 GT Turbo. That car, I think, was 120 horsepower, although if my memory serves me right, I'm pretty sure the GT Turbo only weighed about 850 kilos. So it's got a bit of a weight difference. But my first impressions are it's got quite a zippy throttle to it. As you pull away, as soon as it gets a bit more speed, it doesn't have the power to keep on that acceleration. But off the line, it's got that nippy, and I guess the city kind of traffic light to traffic light acceleration that you want. Driving position is pretty good, to be honest. Clearly I'm sat on the wrong side of the car, but I'm super used to jumping into left and right hand drive cars, so that doesn't worry me at all. And as I said, this is just purely an early car that Renault got their hands on from France to let some journalists have a go, but it's great fun. I love the speedo display. That's very cool, with a sort of, there's lots of diagonal lines running through it, and the font's used in lots of different places. I like that a lot. And I've got 4 different drive modes. There's a little multi-sense button on the steering wheel, and I can go from Comfort Eco, Sport, and then Perso, so I can set one up myself. I'm in Comfort mode at the moment, just to get my head around the car. Visibility is excellent, it's just ace. And obviously it's the same interior and the same layout as the Alpine A290. So I'm trying not to compare it with that because that's a very different car. What I would say, the brakes are very sharp. So at slow speeds, and whether or not it's just because there was a little bit of corrosion on them from having been left overnight in the rain, I'm not sure. But at slow speeds, they're quite bitey. So if you're moving along, if you're just creeping and you put your foot on the brakes, they're very sharp and very bitey. But when you're driving along at pace, they're very firm. So there's not a great deal of travel in the brake pedal, but it's very, very effective. So I'm going to turn right here, and I'm also going to change drive mode. So I'm going to go up into sport mode, I think. Oh, I'm now in sport mode, and oh, bit of wheel spin, bit of torque steer. The display's now changed. The throttle's a little bit sharper. Ride quality is very good. There's some horrible potholes up this road, but the suspension feels quite supple in the way it's been sprung. The spring rates are just nice because it floats around a little bit. And at the end of the day, this isn't aimed at being a sports car. Someone commented on a video I did a few weeks ago and they said, why are you comparing this to a sports car? It's not. And they're right. This isn't a sports car. But I think the French joie de vivre that they want in this car, you want a car that has a bit of nip to it. That, you know, here we go. If I'm sort of sat here at 45, 60, it's got that. That's enough. I mean, you've got enough to kind of do some accelerating. Let's just come into this bend. That brake pedal is a little bit hard for me. I'd like it just to have a little bit more feel, if I'm honest. That's National 60. It's great. Now, next thing, this car's home environment, if you like, are towns and cities. So I reckon we head towards Chichester, but on the way I need to stop into somewhere really special. Now, I doubt anyone would ever do a track day in an R5, but going to somewhere like Goodwood, you want to look your best. You want to look cool. And that's definitely what you're going to do in an R5. And also, I reckon there's some quite nice photographs that I can take at the Goodwood Motor Circuit. Sadly, the exhaust appreciation tunnel is a bit dull in this car, but in damp conditions, in sport mode, when you plant your foot on the throttle, you get a bit of wheel spin every time. Loving that. Here we go. This is R5 happy hunting ground. The urban environment. Not that Chichester's particularly urban jungle or anything, but this is the kind of environment where these cars make total and utter sense. The range that you have, if you're doing lots of city driving, you live in a big city like London or Manchester or Birmingham or somewhere like that, and you're going to be driving around at slower speeds, that range really doesn't become a massive issue. Great. Super quiet, nice and electric, easy to park because it's not very big, enough boot space to do a bit of shopping. And whilst, you know, driving around the Côte d'Azur with the windows open and some nice music playing would be a little bit more enjoyable than driving around the back end of Chichester, this, for me, this is the environment that makes these cars totally make sense. Well, it'd be rude of me not to take it down my favourite road, wouldn't it? Now, this car so far then, for normal driving on a country road, brilliant. In the town, brilliant. The suspension setup's nice and smooth and quiet and relaxing. It's a really small footprint car, so it's really easy around town. But I still want to know if it's got that fizz down the back road, down a bit of twisty. Will it put a smile on your face? I tell you now, absolutely it will. Big flood around this corner, so I just have to be a bit careful. It's around here, I think. Car's coming, good. It has plenty of fizz. 150 brake, as I said, is all good, but I'm sat here and thinking, well, actually from a performance point of view, a couple of things. I cannot see why you would buy the small battery, low power one, unless budget was an absolute ultimate constraint, because I just can't see it being a practical, usable car. My advice would be spend a bit more money, get the bigger battery and more power. So I'm going to get you to spend more money, but I'm also potentially going to save you about 10,000 quid. Because if you're considering an Alpine A290, I don't think an Alpine A290 is £10,000 better than this car down a B road. I honestly don't. It's pretty quick. It's got beautiful suspension and brakes. So it is a very, very sport setup, sport oriented car. But this does 80% of that. You can chuck it down a B road. It's got a lovely feeling to it. This car's actually on winter tyres, and it's not really winter tyre weather today. It's just a little bit less grip than you would expect. Maybe if it was on all seasons for today, that would be better, and obviously summers if it was drier and warmer. So the tyres are taking a little bit of the performance away, but not a great deal. Everything else though, it's remarkably good down a B road. Like, really good. And if you are, like I am, a Mini fan, you need to try one of these, because it has so many of those traits I love. The front wheel drive, darty feel to it. Really nice steering feel, actually. It's a little bit, on throttle, it is a bit torque steery. Well, when I say a bit, it's a lot torque steery. But you just have to hold on tight and enjoy yourself. Here we go, up the Petrol Ped hill climb. On throttle, if you've got too much lock on, there we go, inside right was just spinning up there. I'll tell you what. And this isn't the sporty one, really? Yeah, it's just... a little bit of... yeah, I need to do... I don't... The thing with the Alpine version is it had that electronic limited slip diff. I don't think that's got the same... it's got the same setup on the front axle, so there's a little bit of wheel spin going on, but I've got to say... clap, clap. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So, final impressions of the little R5 now I've got to drive it. Well, sadly, I've only really had it for the day, so I've not driven it a great deal, but it is brilliant. Things I'm not so keen on, I don't like the gear stick so much, but that's a really tiny thing. I love the styling. There's not a thing about the styling on the outside that I don't like, and the inside's pretty up there, to be honest. So yeah, all in all, an exceptionally good package, and for let's say 30k, by the time you choose a decent spec one and put a couple of bits on it, 28 if you don't, for me, in the crazy world we live in, I think that is a really good buy, and I think it's as good an EV in this sector as you're going to buy. I really do. I can't think of many EVs that I've driven recently that are better than this, apart from my Ioniq 5N, but that's £65,000. You can buy two of these for an Ioniq 5N, and they do the same range, and they probably this will put 80% of the smile on your face. It just doesn't have the fake gears. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I'm so chuffed, because I saw it and I thought, oh, it looks so... the design's right there. It's just what we want. It looks cool. It's different to so many things out there. It's got to drive right though. And guess what? Renault have done that, because it drives brilliantly. Anyway, I'm going to enjoy this car for as long as I can before it gets picked up. But I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. But for now, au revoir, à la prochaine. Joie de vivre, bonnet de douche, mange tout, R5.